Excellent. Our next speaker is the winner of the Traveled Furthest to Be Here prize. She's also a CPA that traveled furthest to be here during tax season, so that's particularly impressive. That person is Jessica Marschall. Jessica Irving Marschall, CPA, is president and CEO of the Green Mission, Inc., a national scale appraisal firm helping to promote deconstruction and donation. Based in Fredericksburg, Virginia, Green Mission seeks to encourage the donation of building materials, appliances, fixtures, furnishings, and other material and property recovered via deconstruction by applying the proper use of existing federal and state tax policy. Jessica is a CPA of over 20 years and an IRS qualified appraiser, ensuring that proper valuation theory and strict adherence to the Internal Revenue Code are followed. And I want to add one more thing, is that she's traveling with her son, Will, her 17-year-old son who came to this event. She says he was not interested in her presentation, but the other stuff. Here's Jessica Marschall.
Thank you. That is me, and that is my son. And I have 5 children, and I bring one of them to every presentation to show them that what I do is not boring. It's tax policy. And we have environmental policy and tax policy aligning in the form of a tax deduction when you deconstruct and then donate the materials and fixtures from that project. So as we all know, tax is crazily exciting because tax policy drives behavior. And no matter what my students at the community college may say when they try to drop my class because they say they hurt debits and credits, tax is exciting. So let's dive in. And I'm not going to go too much into this. If anyone cannot sleep tonight, go back to these slides. This is where the tax deduction is taken. It is an individual or pass-through entity on the Schedule A. Corporate taxpayers can deduct on the 1120. There's the limitations, AGI, 5-year carry forward, has to be capital gain property, limited to basis, especially for corporations. Remember that if it's fully depreciated, the valuation is not there. IRS defined fair market value, which we will get to, and it is required anytime the donation is in excess of $5,000. Issues, TCJA, Tax Cuts and Job Act 2018, which they dropped in our laps on 2017 winter break, was exciting. It substantially raised the standard deduction, so a lot of people cannot itemize. You must itemize deductions to take the deconstruction deduction. Let's go into some of these by examples so no one falls asleep. This is an inequitable deduction. Look at this. Here is where we have a taxpayer in Roanoke, Virginia versus a taxpayer in New York City. The donation of deconstructed materials and property is equal to what your effective tax rate is, which means average tax rate. If you're in a state that allows for the itemized deductions, tack on that state tax rate. So all of a sudden you have in New York City, somebody donates every dollar's worth of material, the same material that they donate is worth 45 cents back in their pocket. Roanoke, Virginia, 23 cents. And again, if you don't itemize deductions, which is the Schedule A, you can't take the deconstruction deduction. So if the IRS ever calls on me to rewrite the tax code, which I'm happy to do for them, especially during tax season, a credit, it would be equitable. It would be the same for everyone, a credit based on a percentage of the value of the materials. Make it refundable or even a portion refundable, and I would be in CPA nerd heaven. Okay, the other issue with this is you have to donate to a nonprofit or a governmental organization. What this means is that there are so many amazing for-profit reuse facilities that can't accept those donations and allow for a tax deduction. So it does create a bottleneck. There's some great nonprofits who are able to work well to distribute these materials, but it really would be, again, if Congress is listening, I know they have nothing else on their plate right now. But it would be fantastic if these donations could be to any reuse organization. Additional issues. When I started in this industry, which is just about 3 years, I've been a CPA for almost 21 years, There's probably less than 20 appraisers nationwide who do these appraisals for deconstructed materials. They're not tough. Valuing, pieces of reclaimed knotty pine. There's a market, you research the market, it's the same valuation methodology as if you were donating a piece of fine and decorative art. But for whatever reason, the market is, we're just a few appraisers. This education component is critical. These are the 3 organizations that sponsor the Appraisal Foundation. Those organizations teach you how to appraise. So that's critical. So appraisers, we've got to raise the standards. We've got to ensure that they have an education requisite with valuation methodology, that they're accredited from one of these organizations. Otherwise, we will have the issue that I will talk about a little later. Valuation is based upon actual sales tethered to the market. What we do when we value is we're looking at the reused retailers. We're looking at eBay, KBID. We right now look at over 600 auction and retail sites to find out what is the value in this region for this material. There are no shortcuts. As we'll see from some tax court cases, some appraisers toss all these valuations into cost estimating software, such as RS Means, Marschall, and Swift. That's not meant to come up with an appraised valuation to substantiate for the IRS. It's not, and we'll talk a little bit more. Here's the correct appraisal steps. Again, can't sleep tonight, go through these, it'll help you. This is how we would appraise a Wolf professional cooktop. This is exactly what you see in our deconstruction appraisals. This is what our company does, and this is what the IRS requires, and this is what the appraisal organizations require that you do to appraise something that is reclaimed. We also get hired quite often to redo appraisals that are rejected, that the IRS has said we do not accept, and this is what we see on their appraisal. Okay, then let's dig a little bit into look how excited he is. I'm seeing some movement in his face. Okay, we're excited. So research, here's the fees for a 2,500 square foot home. We're using the correct methodology. We charge $1,500. It takes me paying into staff time in my own review, 20 hours, about 75 bucks an hour. That's good. Incorrect methodology, put it all into RS Means, 30 minutes, $3,000 an hour. Do we see some motivation for a shortcut? We absolutely do. 2 tax court cases have really cut the legs out of the deconstruction movement, especially on the East Coast where these tax court cases took place, which was a nonprofit in Baltimore and an appraiser in Virginia. Mann v. US, Laube v. Commissioner, and the Lost Appeal. And in each of those cases, the appraiser, questionable qualifications, tossed everything into RS Means. There was haphazard depreciation. Really, any appraiser should not be depreciating building materials. We're looking at the market value of the piece on the current market. They had no photographs, lack of detailed inventory. These cases have done demonstrable damage to the cause of deconstruction, and I am working like mad to clean this up. This detailed inventory, all of a sudden you could extrapolate and you can see that there could potentially be something called an illegal tax shelter, which is, common parlance is tax fraud. If you appraise crap that was not donated, that is tax fraud. You have to make sure that you have an inventory that is cross-checked with the nonprofit to ensure it was actually donated. Again, IRS counsel, I attend their presentations many times throughout the year. They have let us know they are not looking to disallow donations for deconstructed materials and property. They want this. They love that this has aligned with environmental policies, but you have to do it correctly. They've shown us how to do it correctly. We can do it correctly. We must insist that every gatekeeper, whether it is the nonprofit, the deconstruction contractor, and the appraisal, put some sunlight there. We have all clients sign to proactively allow us to share the appraisal with the nonprofit. Put some sunlight on it. Everybody knows what's there. The appraisal is your best piece of checking on the process, and it should not be hidden. Paradigm shift, new to reclaimed. These are some of my favorites. To have deconstructed materials have value, they must have a market for value. Recapture it in Washington is amazing. That is Larry Lamont. He is creating an Amazon type platform where people can click and buy everything in the quantity that they need. Reuse Innovation Center, again up in Washington, Dave Benink trains deconstruction contractors on how to maximize salvaging, how to do this. How do you deconstruct? Call Dave, he can tell you. Renovation Angel up in New Jersey, they are upcycling beautiful, gorgeous $200,000 kitchens that they then make available for sale for, under $10,000. Amazing. Building Resources in your San Francisco area is fantastic. Yay. Ed Dunn, the executive director, that man has so much skin in the game. If you want to know anything and everything about deconstruction, call Ed. He is a wonderful resource. We also have Philly Community Corps out where we are in Virginia or in Philadelphia. So many on the East Coast. Great things are happening. We just have to do this correctly and move it forward. Questions, again, if you can't sleep tonight, call me and I'll talk to you and I will be better than the call map. I will put you right to sleep with tax policy. Questions?
So you seem to have some strong opinions about policy changes that should happen. What are you doing to move those forward?
I am here. I flew here during tax season. Let's start with that. I attend local organizations. I attend all of our appraisal. I actually took the education from all three of those appraisal organizations and have become accredited in one and finishing up in two. So I attend every industry event that I can, where I can propose these changes and get in touch with the decision makers and get consensus and push this forward.
David, you got anything?
We have a question for Mary. Does an appraiser need to be a tax specialist?
No, but it helps. We do. We deal with schedules, we deal with details, we deal with valuation. It certainly helps to at least have a background, undergraduate or master's degree in something that lends itself to valuation methodology. But again, ASA especially has some great courses on valuation methodology. Again, I took them from all three organizations. It's a great start. You do need to kind of have the mind of the CPA, the attention to detail, really loving the minutia of this kind of work, because it's very time consuming to do it correctly, but it's so exciting when you see the needle is being moved from deconstruction to, or away from demolition and dumping to deconstruction because of a tax deduction. That's tax policy I love.
Hi, I just wanted to know if you could talk a little bit more about the depreciation, what you were just talking about, because what you said is that that appraisers should not be depreciating building materials. And I was just wondering, like, how, for example, going back to the example, like the knotty pine piece of wood, like how would you evaluate that?
Okay, so there's three different, again, if you want to have trouble sleeping, call me tonight and I can talk more about this. 3 ways to value: sales comparison approach based on market, the cost less depreciation cost approach. That's for a beautiful wall mural that an artist creates. If that gets destroyed and needs to be recreated, you're going to have to look at what the cost would be to recreate it. The third is looking at the income generation. Knotty pine does not generate income. We're looking at the sales market. So what we look at is places like E&K Vintage Wood, Urban Ore, another amazing organization in this area. We're looking and we're visiting these places, capturing the sales price, as well as talking to the executive directors. Boston Building Resources is fantastic. I know a Kohler elongated toilet sells on the market for $80 to $120. What I'm going to show to the IRS is I know that with 3 comparable sales pulled from different markets, presented, tied up with a bow so that tax deduction is able to be taken for whatever I land on. 85, it's got a chip in the porcelain. So depreciation doesn't come into play. That's something that people are erroneously using that cost construction software, taking a guess on what the depreciation of knotty pine doesn't really depreciate. Knotty pine lasts a long time. So yes, sales comparison, market-based approach is critical to the valuation.
Hi, I'm just curious, you're talking about all of the work that goes into appraising all of the many items that might be in a home that's being deconstructed. I'm curious if there's sort of any way to be more efficient with similar items that you might see very often. And if there's any sort of way, as this becomes more popular, hopefully, that the system can be faster and easier for people as they try to deconstruct their homes.
Absolutely. But the IRS doesn't like to make anything easy or fast, and we need to include that full inventory. I'm going to know exactly what reclaimed Pella windows cost. With our company, we've got a comps database that we're refreshing because, as we know right now, lumber prices are through the roof. That eventually will burst, and that's when we're going to be needing to look at different comparable sales. But really, you can't take a shortcut when it comes to ensuring that that full housing inventory is captured. Again, we do that working with the deconstruction contractor, make sure the nonprofit actually takes it all, and then we drill down into valuations. Again, we're dealing with the IRS in those 2 tax court cases that put this on the IRS radar. We're not messing around with having anything but exactly what the IRS wants. Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
One of the reasons I wanted to have Jessica's voice raised on this issue is because a lot of cities are looking at mandatory deconstruction ordinances, and this is a detail that's important for how those ordinances are implemented and the systems are built, rather than have this come back to bite you after you pass your ordinance. So, and there are nonprofits that have built the model of the tax credit model and helped build deconstruction. That's all good. We just got to do it right if we go big in the future.